Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday Night Live, a very cold Tuesday Night Live in Adelaide, if that's where you're listening from. And joining me, as usual, is Macca. How you going, Mac?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, mate.
Very good. And Peter J. How you going, mate?
I'm well, Fane, and yourself?
Not too bad. Poor old Donkey Magoo is still on his way back from Alice Springs to Darwin. I think he's about 400 k's out.
That's a long drive home after that game.
Oh,
how meandering around the Northern Territory, yeah.
How much would you be kicking yourself for even bothering? Seriously.
Yeah, it's a long... Yeah, it took him, what did you say, 2 days?
Yeah, well, what is it, 1,600 k's or something? 2,300
when
k's?
When it's a waste of effort to turn the TV on, imagine driving a 2,500 k round trip.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know.
I was exhausted watching it.
Anyway, fair bit to talk about tonight, so let's hook straight into it with a bit of news.
Yeah.
What have we got, Pete?
Oh, look, normally I'd just hook straight into Crow stuff, and I've sort of been veering away from general AFL news, but I thought tonight the most recent inductee to the Hall of Fame was David Neitz. Fair enough, but I note that Gary McIntosh still sits outside with his 330 some odd games, 12 state games and 2 Magarey medals. But anyway, that's just a little bit of South Australian bitterness there, but that took place tonight.
Well, it's fairly reasonable. I think Gary's getting paid back for snubbing the VFL at the time, isn't he?
I think that's all it is, yep.
Yeah,
he'll
get there eventually.
That's probably what it is.
Don't know whether David Neitz. I don't know. Good, honest player, David Neitz.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. I'm not sure. I'll have a look in a minute, but I'm not sure how decorated he was.
Well, I'm surprised. I am surprised.
How did he play in a premiership?
No, I said he never played in a premiership.
Oh, he never played. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry.
And I don't even know how many BNFs he would have won at Melbourne. There's a bit of competition amongst them. Yeah, anyway. Pretty average. I agree with that, Pete. And, McIntosh should bloody towel up half the blokes in the Hall of Fame as it stands.
I reckon so.
Anything else before we crack into Adelaide Footy Club news?
Carlisle, his appeal failed, so he's got to serve his 2 games.
Yeah, I reckon that's a bit stiff.
He's that type of individual. I reckon he's a bit sneaky. He likes to get a blow in here and there. And if it had been somebody else, I think maybe I might have thought there could have been an accident. But no, being him, I would have given him the 2.
Even though I didn't hit him with a fist.
I just don't like him.
Yeah, I know, but let's talk about the actual incident.
No, look, I would have given him 1.
In the act of spoiling, hit him with his forearm.
I still would have given him 1, though. I thought it was unnecessary, the blow that he gave.
Just quickly going back to David Neitz, he was the Melbourne captain for 8 years. He was a Coleman medalist. He was a 7-time leading kicker, 2 times All-Australian. But putting all that aside, probably the 2 most important achievements, certainly that I can see, is he's the winner of the Keith Bluey Truscott Medal and the Harold Ball Memorial Trophy, whatever the frig those are.
That's ridiculous. That's not Hall of Fame. They're not AFL Hall of Fame numbers.
Yeah. So anyway,
bloody Terry Wallace got in there as well. Jesus Christ.
Oh God.
Well, he probably got in there for the most unusual voice. He's got a shocking voice.
Yeah.
Oh, no, actually, PJ Crow's excellent point. I'm glad he brought that up. There was a tweet out in the Twitter sphere this evening that there is a very, very strong rumour going around that the AFL will next year look to be introducing zones, and the concept that there would need to be a minimum of 3 or 4 players in each of the 3 zones, forward, back, defence. So good to know we're going back to under 9s.
Jesus.
Well, it means that everyone's...
My kid's just My kid's just got out of zones. He's in the under 10s now. He's just escaped zones. And now, he's going to go back?
No. He's not talking about zones. He's talking about recruiting zones.
No. This is zones as in zones on the ground.
No. Bullshit.
Yes. That is the rumour. Yes. Got to be minimum three or four players in each zone.
No, if we start that, someone else is going to have to do the CrowCast because I'm out at that point. That's me. That's me done.
Yep.
Where did you get that from, Pete?
That was on Twitter, and PJ Crow's just backing that one up as well.
Well, that's pathetic.
That even if they bring it in at the JLT, that's me done. There's not a chance in hell I'm following a game like that. I don't watch netball for the same reasons. That's pitiful.
Yeah, we do it at under 9 and under 8 and under 9 level to keep the kiddies apart, and that's exactly what they're doing.
That's outrageous. We'll have to keep an eye on that one.
Keep an eye on that one. So anyway, that's me done.
That's you done. Well, we've got unusual injury woes at the Adelaide Crows as well. We obviously lost Lukey Brown during the game with quote unquote concussion.
Taylor got him.
Yeah, apparently. Interesting though that the initial report when he left the field from Daisy Pearce was a leg injury.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's true. The first report was a leg injury. So I don't know. And obviously we lost Paul Seedsman before the match. Some suggestions that he was never going to play, but we certainly didn't bring in the right emergency if that was the case. So, and suggestions that it was more than just an adductor. Obviously, it looked for all money like he did a hamstring of some sort the previous week. And there's some suggestions from certain sections and reasonably good sources that it's the adductor and hamstring.
Well, Vardy Magic put a concussed adductor. I think that's really hilarious. I was actually going to say adductor awareness, perhaps the first case of that.
Yeah, look, it's a worry. It continues on. I don't know about you, Pete, but it looked to me like Lynch was playing hurt or sore. Didn't look like Miller was right. Gibbs looks tired. Certainly the two young lads inside, Hugh and Camillus Yeoman, look tired. There's a couple of blokes there that don't look right. Jake Kelly looks like he's cooked. What's going on?
Yeah, I guess that is a segue into the game, and I certainly, as you recall from last week, didn't think we'd win it. I didn't think we'd get done by 90 points. I thought we would at least preserve some percentage, but I certainly didn't think we would win. I just felt that, apart from the fact that they were in pretty good nick and had a full deck, the fact that the week before we'd had that sort of slogging, pretty brutal kind of game. When I think it was one of the most statistically, the most contested game on the statistic books, and so that was pretty hard going. And then to go up there in hot conditions on a really big ground, and I know, look, there's all sorts of arguments to sort of say, look, they're professional athletes, blah blah blah. But I think that we probably had a few tired bodies, notwithstanding the mental application of this side and the much discussed issue of their capacity to unpack a performance like that. Personally, I wasn't as aghast as many of that performance. I just figured that's just one. I think I said last week, it's just one. I said on social media, it's just one that really you've got to let slide because it just was never ever going to be a win. But disappointing that they allowed it to get out to 90 odd points.
Well, is it an indictment on the coaching, Peter, that given that we can all see that the squad's running on fumes at the moment. It was a big ground that we were travelling to. We did have a taxing game the week before in the wet. Is it an indictment on the coaching staff that we didn't implement something to turn it into a bit of a scrap? that we didn't try to compress the ground, particularly after the fast start that Melbourne got, and it was visible very early on that we didn't have the petrol in the tank. To my way of thinking, there was no effort at any stage to actually try and win that game. It was another belligerent display by the coaching staff to just continue to smack on with the same bloody game plan and do the same things better. And to me, it's ridiculous. You've got to be realistic. We picked an unbalanced team for a variety of reasons. We're playing on a big ground that we struggle to defend at the best of times. It was basically a carbon copy of the Richmond Grand Final. They just killed us on the outside. And at no stage did we attempt to compress the ground and just make it ugly.
Yeah, I don't think we were capable of doing that, though, quite frankly, because...
Macca,
it's easy. You chuck 18 around the ball.
Well, yeah, but do you look at it and you look at that game and you say, look, if we do that, that's it's a fairly in order to effectively follow the ball around like that and compress the game, as you say, it's relatively high high exertion, high energy, high physicality. Do you really want to be is that what we really want to be doing when we're saying that the side's cooked? And do you just go up there and
Pete,
and
we
do
lost
your best?
15? We lost 15%. It's all right to say it's all right to say that it was a loss that we had to have, and I don't disagree with you. But we lost 15%. That puts us at the bottom. That puts us at the bottom of the 6 and 4 train.
Horrendous. And as I said, I didn't for a minute think that we'd lose that kind of percentage. I thought we'd lose a bit. I had a sort of anywhere between sort of 5 and 8 goals that we would lose that by. I didn't think we would lose by 91 points, and I'm sure that you don't go up there to lose a game by 91 points. But to me, I just think that clubs look at blocks of games, and I think that we would have had our eye on the GWS game as a must win, and I just don't think that with the injuries that we've had, and the fact that you're quite right, there were sore and underdone players, partially. In terms of guys coming back from injury that were underdone, but also guys that were probably sore from the week before. And I just think that they just allowed the game to unfold.
Why were they sore from the week before, Pete?
Well, it was statistically, it was one of the most contested games on record, I read.
It was a 9-day break.
Yeah, but still.
No. 9-day break.
Yeah, but the point was 118 tackles to 114, and
I understand that, but it was a 9-day break, Macca. We can't use that as an excuse. I'm sorry, but it doesn't stack up.
No, but taking it one step further, and I do think, and you raised it yourself there in passing, our game plan struggles on the larger grounds, and this ground is, I think it was only about, if I remember right, I can't get the exact. It was only about 6 metres or something, not as wide as MCG, but about another 7 or 8 longer. And we just get caught out of the bigger grounds. And there was obviously a mental problem. There's a physical problem. We mentally weren't tuned, obviously. Physically, we looked absolutely incompetent. And again, we struggled on a big ground. The thing you said about cluttering up the ground and trying to turn it into a shit fight. I don't think they were capable of doing that on the day.
Well, it's easier to do that. Easy just to bog the game down. Anyway, before we really crack into that, having a talk of that game, let's just sum up the injuries, which is how this shit fight started. So we've got Lukey Brown listed as a test. We've got Seeds listed as a test, but I think that's highly unlikely. As I said, they've got it down as a deductor. I think there's some hamstring there as well, according to sources. Tex Walker is, they've already talked about him, and Sloaney as well, 2 to 3 weeks. Riley Knight now calling it hamstring tendonitis, 2 to 3 weeks. Brad Crouch, and again, from information gained from somebody who has provided very good information for us before. Brad Crouch won't play again this season. He's can't run more than 50 metres without being sore. Apparently the only reason he got through last season was because they tried some experimental injections to ease the nerve pain, but he's worse than he was last season. He won't play again, and that's terrible news if true, and I've got no reason to think that it's not true. Mitch McGovern with an ankle, still 6 to 8. Paul Hunter 8 to 10, and Brodie Smith indefinite, although tentatively for... It's surprising that Brodie Smith's not back this week, given the way we've been handling our other injuries. Get him out there on a bloody pair of crutches, he's all right to go.
Well, it's very obvious when you look at the injury list. There's nothing coming back this side of the bye. Nothing coming back. But one thing we didn't mention about the game on last Sunday, the lack of leadership. You know, there was. You could not tell me. Hang on,
Macca, we're not at the game yet. We're still talking about news. Keep your powder dry just for a minute.
I thought we had about a 10-minute discussion.
Well, yeah, we did, and I had to pull it back because. In other good news on the injury front, sorry, Macca, Andrew McPherson has recovered apparently from his groin injury, and will be playing in the SANFL. And just on the SANFL, the SANFL team looked cooked as well. I don't know whether you saw it, you two.
Yeah, I did.
They look like they're running on fumes.
Ben Davis. Ben Davis. Whew.
Yeah.
Can he play?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Very exciting player.
Only Westies. Yeah.
Hanger's a hanger.
Oh, yeah. You'd taken a hanger before, though, haven't you, Pete?
Oh, you're kidding, are you?
You would have taken a hanger or two in your day. Macca would have got off the ground.
Once.
I was a very, very dour very, very dour halfback, socks down, and just would never, ever get off the ground, mate.
Yeah.
As a rover, I took one scream in my whole career when I actually jumped on the pack and they squashed me up there.
It's like the good old Kimmy Hodgman and Johnny Platten days when the Rovers used to get up and take marks. Jimmy Darrington. There's some good marks from the Rovers back then.
No, he kicked try, we didn't get too many.
Look, so there's obviously we covered this in detail, so I don't want to go into too much depth again this week, but there's clearly an ongoing injury crisis with the club. Some other interesting information that I received from the same person. There's been some obvious observations that we've flogged the players too hard in pre-season, and the information that I've got is that the coaching staff wanted to gain that edge, back to the old Neil Craig mantra of getting the edge by just working harder and harder, and once a couple break, then you've probably reached your limit, sort of thing. By comparison, after the 2012 grand final, the Hawthorn players, after they lost the 2012 grand final, went to their exit interviews expecting news of flogging to come in the pre-season. They were told to go away and relax, so they were completely refreshed. They didn't have a heavy pre-season at all. And look what happened after that. I wouldn't mind betting that Richmond have done a similar thing, given the connection between Clarkson and Hardwick, which probably indicates why Richmond look far fresher than we do and are suffering far fewer injuries. We've gone the opposite route, and look what's happened there. So, that's... I think it all adds up to a complete balls up of the pre-season and the fitness program down there, and it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
Well, you would hope that there would be some retribution against the personnel. That's all I can say, because it is personnel driven in the sense that the burden downwards to those fitness people, they have absolutely cocked our whole year up.
It won't happen, Macca. As Pete rightly pointed out last week, Burton is Rue's very good friend. They've actually removed him. Like, we all know that he's got 1.5 hands on the fitness program, and he would have been instrumental in employing whatever techniques and systems and programs that they've put in place. But at the end of the day, Matt Haas will be the fall guy on that one. You know that as well as I do.
Well, he has to take it as well. But really, I believe Burton's in a job he's not capable of doing.
Fane, a bit of other info that floated your way. Are you prepared to comment?
I can make a little comment. All I can say is that there's information suggesting that there's some fractures within the playing group down at the Crows, and it's probably not of a professional nature, it's of a personal nature. We can't really... Well, I don't have any more information apart from that, but it seems like there's a bit of a fracture or a bit of discontent within the playing group down there as well. And you'd imagine that the frustration of the season so far would certainly contribute to any simmering, personality clashes or anything like that. So yeah.
So is it fair to say we've hit rock bottom?
I don't know whether they hit rock bottom, but I don't think. I think we're heading in the opposite direction to Richmond.
Mm.
And a few people are saying, comparing to the Tyson Edwards, Andrew McLeod situation. Don't know.
Fantastic.
Don't know whether that's a true statement or not. I guess we'll see over time. But Stephen Rowe's been making allusions on radio for the last few days about some ructions internally, and perhaps this is what he's talking about. I think, Pete, that we're seeing the end of the line for this squad. We mentioned last week about maybe a soft rebuild. If we happen to finish outside the 8 this year, which isn't beyond the realms of possibility, we're looking at the possibility of having a top 10 draft because of our draft pick because of our ladder position. We're looking at possibly 2 first-round draft picks if Sloaney decides to vacate. We're looking at probably another first-round pick if Lynchy decides to vacate. And plus we've got Melbourne's first-round draft pick, which, may well be in the teens, but it'll still be a first-round pick. We could have 5, even possibly 6 picks in the first round.
And 2 seconds as well, because we'll have ours and we'll have Carlton's.
Yeah, well, Carlton's is likely to be, 19, so as good as.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if I seem to think, my own personal view that I've expressed to a couple of people is that the time is up on this squad. I think this squad missed their opportunity last year. They squibbed it. We've got blokes that are struggling fitness-wise. We've got blokes at the end of their careers. We've got some young lads pushing up, but obviously we need more. And if ever there was going to be a draft to do it in, it's this one with so much SA talent.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're building towards. And yeah, I tend to agree. And I think I made comment the other day that this is, certainly in my memory, would be one of, and I say this in a footballing context, of course, that this would be one of the most dishonest playing groups that has ever represented this club since inception. And you can go back over the last 2 or 3 years, and I know that we've discussed this ad nauseum, but if you look at the losses, that there are just games where for no real reason, not for form, not for injuries, not for, it could be anywhere, it could be any time, it could be any place, it could be under any circumstance. We could be in form, we could be out of form, we could have injuries, we might not have injuries. You just don't know when it's going to happen. And it is an appalling, listless, nothing effort.
Yeah, well, I'm 100% with you, Pete, because I made that comment about a week or 2 ago that I completely don't trust this group, and they're
piling up, Mac. The examples, the game examples, are just piling up. So the evidence, looking at it from my world, terminology from my world, the evidence is just there is too great a body of evidence now to think anything other than there is some serious issues. And I know that you mentioned about the coaching group, Fiona. I'm not sure how when you have those performances like Sunday and the game against Collingwood, and you can go back. How much is that on the coach? The coach prepares, the coach has a game plan, the coach does everything that he thinks it needs to be done, and he does it on the basis of what's worked previously, and then all of a sudden you'll get that dished up.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, Pete, but I think there are times when you've got to be realistic about the state of your squad, and I
don't think it's as bad as you're saying, though. I really don't think it is that bad.
What do you mean, not that bad?
Well, you're saying that it's virtually cooked and finished, etc. But if this group was 100% fit, and we had all our good players available, I mean, we've managed to get to 6-4 with what we've got, and I would say that we would be very close to flag favourites if we had all our good players available. So I don't know that it is totally cooked. It's going to be cooked because of the fact of the injuries for this year, but it shouldn't have been. That's what I'm saying.
Do you reckon we would compete with the resurgent West Coast on last year's form?
Yes, if we had all those good players back.
I don't think so.
Macca, last year we had a full deck of players. We were in red hot form, and we went to Hobart, and we went down 10 goals to 0 in the first quarter. That was That's a full deck of players in red hot form.
No, what I'm saying is the capability is there.
No, but that's only half the equation.
I know. I accept that. I'm just saying that the biggest problem is you can't trust them because they don't always give it to you.
Well, then isn't there a moment in time, Macca, where you say, well, they might have the physical capabilities, but this team doesn't have the mental capacity, and you can say they're cooked either way, but as Pete points out, the evidence is on the table and the evidence is mounting up.
I'm not going to argue about that part of it.
No, but then that's what I'm saying. How long do you persist with that? You can't change a Rory Atkins into a tackling machine that stays focused on the game for the whole 120 minutes. You can't. These players have certain characteristics, and this squad has certain characteristics. And Pete's 100% right. In the fact that the evidence is piling up, and to me, the evidence is such that it's pretty apparent that amongst the senior members of our group, we've got our two most experienced players. Two of our four most experienced players on the ground on the weekend were Richard Douglas and David McKay. Now, Douglas tried hard. David McKay had a quiet game. But they're two of our four most experienced players. One of our other most experienced players, Bryce Gibbs, who we played a Monty for, got 19 possessions playing in the midfield. Against a team where a rookie got 37 touches.
Yeah, right. Half a game and half back flank as well.
Well, there was plenty of balls down there, Macca.
I don't even. But even you look at that performance, you think, well, at least that it was good opposition. I mean, those same players put out that same performance against Collingwood at home a few weeks ago.
That's right.
And they won't make, contrary to what some experts believed at the start of the year, they probably won't make the 8.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We have the
it'll be the lower part of the 8.
Yeah, we have the individual talent, and we have good systems and structures. I think a lot of our success is down to good systems and structures. I think our game plan when we're playing well is solid, and it's designed to be aggressive and kick goals and make it difficult for the opposition to beat us. But there's obviously flaws. There's flaws on big grounds. There's flaws when we don't pick a quick team. And there's flaws where we don't win contested ball and ground ball. Where as soon as we lose those two statistics and teams are able to get first use of the ball and get it to the outside, we don't have the capacity to cover those teams. Unless we're playing on a postage stamp like the SCG or a narrow ground that we can easily cover laterally like the Adelaide Oval.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying I'm disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is what we've got, unfortunately, is at our best, with all the players there, we have a lot of ability and enough ability to win a flag, but we don't seem to have the mental capacity to win it. That was it. Yeah. That was what I was trying to get across.
Yeah, no, but you said it wasn't as bad as what I was making it out to be, and I'm saying...
Oh, no, I was talking about the physical side of it wasn't as bad as you're saying.
Well, I'm saying the potential of the squad.
Well,
whether it's physical, mental, whatever, it's the capacity of this squad to win a premiership.
Well, if you get down to the mental capacity, then we are in total agreement because, as I say, I don't trust them one little bit.
Anyway,
I mean, I look at different sport entirely. I know, and I'm still I'm still aching from Game 7 a couple of days ago. But you look at Boston and the injuries that they had and the adversity that they had, and the way that they just fought out every single game. And I loved Jason Tatum's quote after Game 7, and he said, I would have gone to war with any one of these guys any night of the week.
Yeah.
No regrets, nothing left on the court. How many of our players could get up there and say that after a game like, against Collingwood or a game like against Melbourne? You just can't.
Well, do you reckon any of the, and I hate to invoke this name, but do you reckon how many of those players in our squad at the moment do you reckon could look Walsh in the eye and say that they're giving it an authentic red hot go at the moment?
Yeah, exactly.
Not fucking many.
Not too many. No, not too many.
So and that's fine. But it seems, I think the squad has done its dash. I don't think there's anything more that can be done with the squad. And if we hang on to our senior players for too long, the blokes like Sloan and Lynch that might want to head off, then we're going to have a seriously imbalanced squad. It's better to, we've got Tex and Tales and all the rest of it who've got a few years left in them as long as we bring up people underneath them. But this season's the season to do it. Because there's no way we're winning a flag this year. If we win a flag this year, Pete, you and I can do a dance in Rundle Mall together in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stark naked.
No.
No.
Well, you might as well frighten everybody.
No, just the dance will frighten enough, Mako. But there's no way we're winning a flag this year. I can't see it.
No, there is no flag. I accept that.
So
I don't. For all of the negative talk, I can't in all good conscience can't write a season off at this point when we're still 6-3 6 and 4 and with a winnable game next week, and suddenly we're 7 and 4. I'm going to call the Jets on the season being over, but I reckon once it is, we're into that territory where you got to look at this squad and say, look, you had your go, and and don't forget they fluffed it the year before when they lost that game. Another one of their non-turn-up games against West Coast at home and lost a top 4 spot.
Yeah.
That was at that time they were the best team in the competition.
Yep.
And so, don't forget about 2016.
Yep.
When they had every chance to challenge that year, and then just didn't turn up in that last game against West Coast. And so there's that year. There was obviously last year, and we'll see how this year ends up. But you tend to think that some of those guys just they appear to be mentally cooked.
But it's a good point that you raised there, Pete, because you could even say that notwithstanding the tragedy in 2015, that squad made a final series as well. In 2015, and won a final. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, yeah, that's on emotion, but we had the talent. Mark Rashido came into the club in 2014 and swept it clean because he could see that we had a talented squad and that the coach in charge of those guys wasn't doing the business. I mean, that's why drastic change was made, because Rashido thought that squad was going to be wasted with Brenton Sanderson in charge. So we got rid of him 2 years into his contract. But this squad now has been up for 2015, all the turmoil of 2015. Then, as you rightly point out, 2016 and last year, and losing Dangerfield was a massive blow. Poor old Danger is not going to get a flag with Geelong, and he could have had one with us because he was almost a difference last year, I reckon. Just a bloke.
Very ironical, isn't it?
Because, just the bloke with hard as nails like that. As much as he can be a bloody bull hog and a bull at a gate and his disposals off, do you reckon he would have? Do you reckon he would have succumbed last year? No.
No way. No. I still remember that game he and Fife played against each other at Adelaide Oval. That was just outstanding.
Yeah.
That was just two warriors battling away, and you're quite right. And the other thing that I mentioned earlier, and you squashed at the time, the leadership issue. we don't have a leader out there. We at the moment the two best leaders that we've got in Walker and Sloane, they're not out there. And if you look at that game, I saw nobody being a leader. Nobody.
Well, what's Daniel Talia done? Why isn't he in the leadership group? Why isn't he captain?
Question.
He was the one person you could see trying to be a leader.
Well, I heard that when the squad came back chubby, that it was Daniel Talia that tore strips off them all when they came back chubby after the pre-season break.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's not in the leadership group. You know, we can all harken back to that speech he made at the BNF a couple of years ago. Why the bloke's a leader? Why isn't he in the leadership group?
I have no idea. And
it's a very good question.
And you could see that he was trying his arse off in the back line to be a leader. But you go up to the midfield, there was nobody there that even remotely looked like a leader. Up in the forward line, nobody remotely looked like a leader. It was, that to me was one of the most disappointing things of the whole day. And it just looked like a rabble out there, just a leaderless rabble just running around.
Well, let's. I'll quickly, so that we've got a chapter for people who are listening on demand. I'll just play the review music, and we'll talk a bit more about the Melbourne game, and then hook into the GWS game a little bit, So that just puts a marker in Macca. So, look, I agree with you. Pikey was asked at the press conference whether he thought that there was an issue with leadership, and he kind of brushed it aside and said, everyone's responsible, blah, blah, blah. But you're dead set right. We were like a rudderless ship once Melbourne got on top.
And Rashudo has actually made the same comment. Rashudo's publicly come out and said that they looked like they were absolutely leaderless.
Wonderful stat, and I just want to. Sorry, and this is not quite in the review, so please don't can me.
It's all good.
But terrific stat from PJ Crows. I'd love his input. He's just so on the ball.
Yeah.
2016, the Premier came from 7th place at the end of the minor round. 2017 came from 3rd place. We finished the minor round ahead of both those teams that won flags.
Yeah.
In those final series, and it really just tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Yep.
But anyway, look, getting on to the game. I just, this is. I tell you what helps me sleep at night, Macca and Fiend. What helps me sleep at night is that last year in round 16. That's round 16. That's only 7 games before finals. St Kilda absolutely butchered Richmond to the tune of 67 points. Was thought to be the end of Richmond's year. So, those games can happen. So I'm going to hang my hat on that and look forward to the game against GWS.
Do you think it's worthwhile the coaching staff now finally admitting there is an issue with defending big grounds? Because let's face it, there's not much point in playing if you can't play the MCG. And I think the jury's in on our game plan or our personnel or whatever. We cannot defend big grounds.
No, we can't.
Surely there's got to be a message in that. Surely, they have to take on board again. Too much evidence to ignore. Interesting that was it last week we talked about the fact that the new stadium over in Perth has been built to MCG specifications.
Yeah. Yep.
We were,
and they continue to do well in Melbourne. So, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting to say the least.
Yeah. Well, and particularly at the moment because, we are relying on 2 young lads to carry our inside midfield. And let's face it, Melbourne were on top of the ground. They were fully fit and they do have a very strong... 4 of their 6 midfielders were almost 1 to 2 kicked a handball. 2 handballs for every kick. They had guns inside. We don't have to name them, Viney and, Nathan Jones, etc. And then because they were able to get first use so often, they just fed the likes of Angus Brayshaw on the outside who just had a bloody field day. So we need to provide these blokes with some protection. We let CEY and Greenwood basically shoulder the load inside. There was no other player that really showed any capacity to get inside contested ball. Perhaps we need to get an extra into that contest. We need to get Matt Crouch back into that contest. or Bryce Gibbs involved in the inside contest, because it seems to me that Hugh and CEY against first-rate bullocking midfields, particularly on a big ground, will get killed. I think that was probably the big difference. We just didn't have enough around the ball.
Yeah, well, Simon Moore said they both looked cooked this week, and I thought they did actually. That they had a brilliant game the week before in the wet, and really smashing in, and just maybe that took a lot out of them because they didn't quite look the same. I thought Greenwood closer to it, but Cam was absolutely rooted, I thought.
Yeah, but it's a numbers game as well, and this is what I don't understand, Macca, when it comes to coaching, because they've got real-time stats in front of them. And if you can see 3 or 4 Melbourne midfielders racking up inside possessions and racking up handballs to their outside runners, then why aren't you loading up inside and making it a contest? There was nothing done to try and squeeze up that contest.
Well, I don't know that we had the people on the day. I don't know that we had the people that were going to do it.
We had Matt Crouch and Bryce Gibbs. They can both play inside. Richie Douglas can tag someone. Why didn't they put Richie Douglas on bloody Angus Brayshaw at some stage? Because we had bloody Sam Gilbert on him for half the bloody day, and he got absolutely destroyed. Why weren't these moves made? We had to match them in the inside because that's where they were killing us. They were killing us particularly at stoppages.
They killed us all around the ground, really.
But they only killed us because they got first use, Macca. You've got to go to the root cause, and the root cause is that they were getting first use out of contests. They were smashing us in ground ball gets, and they were able to feed their outside runners, and we weren't spreading defensively enough to cover these blokes. So we had to clog up the inside. We had to get, we had to get a David McKay or a Bryce Gibbs or a Matty Crouch or someone like that. We had to get someone else involved inside to even up the numbers, and we just didn't do it at any stage.
That would not have been silly to put an extra player in there. It would not have been.
Let me ask you this question. I asked this question of both of you. Yeah, when you were watching the game, at what point, just as a yellow observer, observers that we are, we're not professionals. We don't coach or anything like that. But to our untrained eye, at what point did you say to yourselves, "This game is irretrievable. This game's gone"? At what point did you think that?
12 minutes into the first quarter.
No, I thought probably about halfway through the third quarter.
Right, I thought the game was gone about. I thought the game was gone when was it just before quarter time or just before half time when Miller got caught holding the ball?
Half time.
Just before half time, I thought the game was gone. So probably, I think we made a little bit of a run out of that, but they just countered that very easily with 3 or 4 quick goals. I just wonder, and I'm just putting it out there for discussion, at what point does a professional coaching group sense that a game is gone, and rather than start looking at all sorts of strategies which can be taxing on the group, do you say, right, let's just get through this and work it out for next week? Well,
then you play 18 behind the ball and limit the damage, Pete. You don't let it blow out to 91 points.
Yeah, but PJ said when it was 39 touches to 8. The way we started, you could just tell we were so lackadaisical.
Yeah, you could tell from the start, like 2-1-0, and I thought this is going to be a long day. But we did actually stem the flow a little bit halfway through the first quarter. We actually did kind of get it back to a bit of a 50-50 contest, for periods during the middle of the game. But then we just let it go not long into the third quarter, and then, floodgates.
And then collapse.
I mean, it was very obvious earlier that we were stuffed. And Pete, I thought that's the question you were going to ask. At what point did you get worried about how we're going to play? Well, probably 5 minutes into the first quarter. So if you're asking me then when the coaches would react, I wouldn't say 5 minutes into the first quarter, but I'd certainly expect them to respond at some point when the game is still there to be won, because they've got the metrics sitting right in front of them. And what like you lose 15 percentage points, Pete. That's like losing 2 games, not 1.
Yep, I agree.
Oh yeah, no doubt that was that. Look, I'm not defending that. That was a that's certainly a result that they wouldn't have anticipated, and was very, very bad. I just wonder. I remember years ago, I had a very close relative of mine who worked on the very, very, very inner sanctum of the Adelaide Football Club, and this was going back to the early 2000s when Brisbane were a powerhouse. And I just remember that he told me that they'd have a block of games sort of on the board, and like Brisbane away at that point was circled as well. Let's not throw too much at this one, because we need to put in to 4 point. They'd almost concede it, and I just don't know if that still happens. Whether you look at a game like Sunday in Melbourne and say, look, let's not completely throw every
Is
bit
that
of the
the
kitchen
game
sink
you
out of
do
the
though?
resource.
Is that the game you do it though? Melbourne in Alice Springs?
I don't know.
Surely not. Maybe West Coast in Perth. I don't know whether you do. I mean, we had the perfect opportunity to put a game between us and Melbourne and remain in touch for the top 4. Now, Melbourne are a game in front of us, and we're probably a game plus a chunk of percentage. Like, top 4 is almost out of the equation now because our percentage will not recover in time.
Thanks, PJ, for backing me up there. He said that Blighty used to do that, and I remember my relative letting me, and that would have been in the early 2000s. So it certainly used to occur. I'm not sure if it still does.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but I just don't know whether this was a game that you'd do it.
Yeah, we weren't going to win that game on Sunday, and I just don't think we threw the kind of tactical, physical, and all the resources that you could throw at a game. I'm just not sure that we did. We
played injured players.
Yeah.
It doesn't wash, Pete. We played injured players. We played sore players. We left blokes in the twos like Curtly Hampton who were fully fit. Patrick Wilson fully fit. Riley O'Brien fully fit. Harry Deere fully fit. We have blokes in the twos.
Well, you're not going to send your SNFL team up there.
Well, Pete, Pete, what's the point in playing half-fit players if you're trying to do what you said, which is to minimise the damage? You're not going to cook half-cooked players. So maybe you do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there as a potential because there's got to be some reason that you go up there and lose by 91 points.
What you're trying to do is justify the indefensible, Pete, because you still don't believe what you saw, and you're trying to find it. You're trying to find a reason when no reason exists.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. But I guarantee we won't see that performance on Sunday.
Oh, we're at home against a struggling team, but I also know that they're a fast team, and if we don't run defensively again, we're going to get towed up again. It's not a lay down game this week. I've got a funny feeling about it.
I'm pretty confident they'll win this week.
I think we can win this week, but we're certainly not with the same mental attitude that we had on last Sunday. It wouldn't beat anybody with that mental attitude. But I do think we've also got to bring in blokes like Curtly Hampton who can actually fight in the trenches a little bit. Your point is very valid, Phoenix, about the fact that there wasn't enough scrapping and efforts to make it into a dog fight. But really, I think one of the reasons for that was we were just chasing arse all the time. We were down 46 in contested possessions.
Yeah, so because we were outnumbered around the ball, mate.
Yeah, well, they certainly worked hard enough, and they had enthusiasm, and they were running, and we were just chasing hard.
I like Simon Moore's comment that there'll be a lynching if it happens. If a performance like that was put out, like I'm saying against Collingwood and the one last week, if that comes out again this Sunday, could Don's position possibly be shaky?
No, not with the injury list that we've got, Pete. I don't. I think Don's Don's done it. Don's got us to a grand final. I think the blowtorch would have to be aimed at other sections of the club, including the playing list. In my opinion, I don't think Pikey's under pressure yet.
No,
because they extended him for 2, didn't they? He's got another 2 to go or something like that. I reckon they'd let him roll over this list before there's pressure.
But certainly they'd be well aware of the fact that he isn't in charge of the fitness thing, and he's been presented with a heap of shit in that particular respect.
Well, the 2 things that you have to do with GWS is you have to stop their running, you have to stop their handballing. Because remember a couple of years ago when they were running on top of the ground, one of their key strengths was those amazing handball runs through the corridor. So that's the first thing you got to stop them doing. And the second thing you've got to do is pierce their defence, because their defence it doesn't really rebound, so you can actually lock the ball in your forward half. Because they don't really have a lot of rebound defenders in their back half, and they played quite tall in their back half as well. Now, I'm not concerned that we can't lock the ball into our forward 50. My concern is I don't know if Leon Cameron decides to let him off the chain and just tells them to run. I don't know whether we've got the cattle to stop them, to be honest. Yeah,
but you also got to take into account they have a very big injury list as well. So they've got a lot of good players out as well.
Well, they got 2 good ones back last week, Kelly and someone else I can't remember.
Kelly's a class individual, but and certainly not playing them. But he played last week against Essendon as well.
Yeah,
and they were embarrassed by us, in my opinion.
Yeah, by a quick team, Macca.
Well, that's certainly not us.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. We've acknowledged Worsfold let Essendon off the chain after Neesham's gone, and just watch your mic cord there, Pete. And since then they've started running again, and look at the results. So we don't present the same challenge as Essendon did. And if anyone's under pressure at the moment, it's the GWS squad. And they're in danger of missing finals altogether with an elite squad, and. There's a lot of conjecture about whether they've got the heart to be able to do it tough. Well, I think we're about to find out with GWS over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and it wouldn't be a bad kickstart to that little block of games, beating Adelaide and Adelaide for the first time.
Yeah. Oh, no question. I mean, they've got everything to play for. Don't get me wrong.
But so have we.
But so have we. I just can't. I cannot see us not bouncing back after that performance on Sunday, and we've at times this year we played some very good football, and I think that we'll have enough to get over the line. I feel quite confident that we win on Sunday. Quite confident.
I'd love to see a stat of how many times a team got beaten by 91 points 90 plus points one week and won the next week. I don't think it happens very often. I don't think you get beaten by 15 goals and then win the next week very often. And we're not talking about Carlton. We're talking about a team that is down on form, but they're certainly not down on talent.
No.
I'm not confident at all. Objectively, I'm not confident.
Well, I do. Look, I accept you can't trust this, Bob, because they will let you down at the drop of a hat. But I think that Pete's right on this occasion, that the criticism has been so loud and from so many sources that I think they will actually try to find something this week.
Yeah, we've got to have the cattle, Mac. Do we have the cattle?
Not to the extent that I'd like there to be out there.
I mean, if we had a fit and firing best 22, I'd have a completely different opinion. But I don't think we've got the cattle. Well, I mean, but that's the critical question, isn't it? Do we? If GWS come to play and give us their best, do we have the cattle to stop them?
If they played their very best football, their
normal style, last year's football, their normal style of game. Do we have the cattle to beat them this week?
Probably not, but they're not playing anywhere near that at the moment. So there would have to be a total reversal along the lines you were talking about with us.
And they're missing some. To be fair, they're missing some cattle to execute that as well.
Yeah, but they're getting cattle back. As I said, they got Kelly back last week.
Scully for them is a massive loss in terms of run through the middle.
Yeah,
massive
very
loss.
True.
Yeah, and Toby Green to finish, and they're mad. Scully and Green are huge losses.
Oh, no doubt. No, just posing questions. So, I mean, I guess
that's good.
Again, it's first use, and I guess GWS aren't a hugely contestable team. So not in the same stratosphere as Melbourne. So we should get our hands on the ball enough. Do we have enough scoring avenues?
I think Eddie's coming back into a bit of form, and I think that he's become a little bit more of a reliable route to goal than what he had been. Fogarty shows glimpses, but he's a 6-game player, and he plays in that way, flashes in, flashes out.
Yep.
You've really got to be picking up 2 or 3 goals from the likes of Douglas. You've got to be picking up 2 or 3 goals from Jenkins, it's a little bit of a bits and pieces, isn't it?
I thought Jenkins actually was one of the few that tried last week. In past years he's been one of the ones that let us down, but 12 possessions and 5 tackles at least I thought the guy put in. And if we can get the ball down there a bit quicker, and then he'll get a few more goals. But I'd like to see Kirtley Hampton come in, and I mean Paholke isn't quite there at the moment. I think that leaves us one down there, I thought, and so I'd like to see Hampton come in because he can go really put it in when there's a scrap on.
Oh, he was terrific on the weekend, and certainly would be.
Who's that?
Reasonably Hampton.
Yeah,
would be reasonably deserving of a recall.
Yeah, I'd really like to see him come back.
Yep, he won't.
He won't.
I wouldn't think.
Why wouldn't you play him ahead of Polkey?
Why wouldn't? Well, you'd probably play Lockie Murphy ahead of Polkey. You need defensive forward pressure. Lockie's our forward defensive pressure, and he's aggressive. He can kick a goal. He's a good foil for Eddie. Takes a bit of the heat off Eddie. I don't think Paholke presents the same challenge.
Well, I can't work out. Actually, if we can just talk about Kirtley Hampton for a moment, I can't work out that he played the first 7 or 8 games last year in the midfield. He was our inside bullocking, bulldozing, tackling. I mean, he led I reckon after 6 rounds he led the AFL in tackles.
Yeah, he was averaging 17 or 18 pressure acts a game,
and he was playing in the guts. And we know he was injured and fell away and couldn't win his way back. Injuries occurred to him, but I just felt like then that when we then started the JLT, he was in this half forward kind of rotational kind of role that wasn't the same role that he played at the start of last year, and certainly not the role that he was playing on Saturday in the SNFL team. He was in the guts. And he was winning clearances, and I just wonder why, when we are thin in the midfield, why you wouldn't chuck him in there.
Well, we have this predisposition to have blokes in allocated groups, and I wouldn't mind betting that Kirtley maybe got shifted to a different group with the rise of Cam Ellis-Yolman. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. Just on Greater Western Sydney, just quickly, you do realise that they've got stuff all people out now. If Phil Davis comes back this week from concussion, so they've got Matt De Boer out. He's had a couple of good games, but he's a journeyman at best. They've got Delidio out. Well, that doesn't really lose them that much. Toby Green.
He was in great form, Delidio.
Yeah, but they didn't even need him last year, Macca. So it's not as if he's integral. Toby Green is a big out with his foot, and then Kennett and Tom Scully, obviously, with his ankle. So it's really Green and Scully, and you could probably make a case for Setterfield. The rest of them are just, fringe players. They don't have many out anymore.
Yeah, they don't win too many games on when they're travelling either, GWS.
No, I'm just talking about injuries, Mac. That's just tidying that up.
That's a fair comment. It's a fair comment, Fane. I think that we all probably thought that they got more out than they have because they've had a few coming back over the last couple of weeks. But So not as many as perhaps certainly that I thought, but
probably 3 keys compared to our 8 or 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
and those two are absolute match winners.
Oh, no doubt.
And they lost their best rebound player to Fremantle too, in Wilson.
Yeah. They are playing very tall down back, and Heath Shaw's getting a bit old, so he's not providing the same amount of run that he would have in the past. But they tend to play like 3 talls and then a couple of like 3 mid-sized players. It's quite a tall defence that they've got.
Yeah, their defence is very ordinary, I reckon.
So we're gonna lose Seedsman, I assume.
Yep.
You
would think.
What are they
listed for a
you
test?
would think that they drop Polkey. We've got no injured players coming back, so you think that Hampton would be first in line, and Murphy. So would we say Hampton and Murphy for Seedsman and Polkey?
If Seedsman's out there, that's definitely right. Yeah.
Well, what are the chances Luke Brown plays?
Well,
and hang on a minute, what the hell? This is updated Tuesday, May the 29th. I'm looking at the official AFL injury list. Yeah. Luke Brown, injury, adductor, test.
You're joking.
I'm reading it right in front of me. Luke Brown, adductor, test.
Is that the AFC or AFL?
AFL. The early prognosis. The Crows are hopeful Seedsman will be available for Sunday's clash with GWS, so it's up to date. Seedsman was a late withdrawal. Brown will be assessed during the week after he was concussed in the first quarter against the Demons. But on the list, on the actual list where it says player injury and estimated return, it's got Luke Brown, adductor, test. AFL.com.au news injury list. I'm calling bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's Brownie not available, so we need a replacement for him as well.
Yep. I mean, well, you probably in that case you bring in Kirtley and maybe play him off half back, and push Laird or D-Mac deeper perhaps.
Well, Simon Moore published an injury list which says Luke Brown concussion test.
I'm reading this off the official AFL injury list on.
No, I'm not saying you're not
on the AFL website.
So I don't know where Simon Moore got his from because
if Simon got his off the AFC, if Simon got his off the AFC website, then that tells me that there's a change that hasn't been updated in the AFL website. Like no, don't put adductor, put concussion. Anyway, we all know they talk bullshit.
Well, actually, the AFL know they talk bullshit. The AFL is talking about bringing in penalties for teams that are dishonest about their injuries.
Yeah, anyway, that's not now. So Hampton...
I think we'll need 3.
Yeah, Hampton, Murphy... Well, I mean, that's really all we've got. Can you make a case
I reckon they'll bring Otten back. They'll bring Otten back.
You reckon?
Yeah. They'll drop... We'll lose Brown, Seedsman, and I reckon they'll probably cut Polkey, and Murphy, Hampton, and Otten will be my 3 ins and outs.
Murphy, Hampton, Otten. No case for Paddy Wilson?
Oh, I thought he was... I mean, I don't know what all the fuss has been about, to be honest. I thought he was pretty ordinary.
On the weekend?
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with Jackson Edwards, actually.
Yeah, Jackson's coming along all right, the couple of games that I've seen.
His use of the ball was just superb.
Yeah.
Just bullets, bullets hitting tits. It was really good.
Have you seen any SANFL over the last month, Pete, before the weekend?
I hadn't seen as much as I'd like, no.
Yeah, Paddy's been playing all right.
Is he all right? He didn't look much chopped to me on the weekend. I was just incredibly impressed with Jackson Edwards and Ben Davis. They were the 2 that I was really impressed with.
Yeah. No, Wilson.
And I thought Rolly O'Brien was good too. I think he's vastly underrated, Rolly O'Brien. No. Vastly underrated.
No, I think you'll be disappointed.
Well, they were talking about Jacobs, and he is jumping up and down before the ball gets there. I don't get this.
It's not actually jumping.
Well, I don't say jumping 3 inches off the ground. His effort of jumping. I don't get it.
Well, when you know you can't compete with someone, what do you try and do?
Nullify them.
Yeah, and that's all that is, Macca. He's just trying to. No, and why do you think Sauce gets done for so many centre bounce infringements? Because he goes so early. He actually tries to mitigate the centre line by going so early that he chops off the other ruckman's run. And he fends off all the time with his arm, which he's not allowed to do, and he does it repeatedly.
Yeah,
Probably does it 3 or 4 times a game.
He does.
And he's starting to get smashed around throw-in stoppages as well. He's done, as far as I'm concerned. If it's injury, do what you're doing with Tex and Sloaney and give him a block of time to recover.
Mm.
Yeah, they might as well play O'Brien for all the impact that Jacobs is having at the moment.
He'd bring a bit of verve, a bit of energy, and I'd be very surprised if he didn't acquit himself well.
Well, I mean, it's not as if GWS haven't got a couple of decent tools either. Can we really? I mean, Sauce got towed up by bloody Gawn last weekend, and GWS's tools aren't going to be any less of a challenge. So, can we afford in such an important game to have a 2/3 fit, can't jump, giving us nothing around the ground ruckman?
You try and tell Sauce he's playing.
Well, yeah, to the team's detriment. Aren't we supposed to be team first culture?
That's it.
Yeah.
We couldn't tell Tomo, we can't tell Sauce.
No, well, that's bollocks if you ask me.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset to see him get a rest for about 2 or 3 weeks.
Oh, look, I agree. I was just... who was it that made that... Was that Sanderson that made that comment about Tomo?
Yeah, I think so. Sanderson.
Or Craig? I can't remember which one.
No, it was Sando.
No, Sanderson made it.
Sando.
Yeah.
Mm. So, no, I'd like to see Sauce get a rest, and I'd actually really like to see Rod O'Brien have a go. I rate him. I think he's a good player.
Well, I just want him to try something, and to stop bullshitting.
I love PJ's got you may as well induct Romano Negri.
Hey, Big Romy wasn't bad. Bloody hell.
Oh, he wasn't that good. He was so uncoordinated.
So, Mac, are we getting up for a win?
I think we'll get up, and I think we'll win by about 23 points.
23 points, Pete?
Yeah, that's about the sort of the range, I reckon. Somewhere between 4 and 5 goals. I think we'll win by.
Right. Okay.
Maybe 3 to 4. 3 to 4. Somewhere between 18 and 24. Somewhere around that mark.
Yeah, I think we're down by 16 points. Yeah, not confident. Other games, we've got Sydney and Carlton. That's going to be an absolute belter at the SCG on Friday night.
Yeah, Sydney to win that one.
Funnily enough, the Sydney put out at the start of the year that they wanted to really focus on winning in Melbourne. And do you know how many home games they've won this year? Not many.
No.
But they're doing pretty well in Melbourne.
Yeah, I don't see Carlton.
Don't see Carlton winning though.
Carlton at $11. I don't think I've seen a team pay much more than that. $11. Sydney 104.
Certainly haven't seen them win at $11.
No. Bulldogs take on Melbourne on Saturday at Etihad. Etihad.
I mean, you couldn't tip against Melbourne now.
No, I don't think you could. I don't think. Interesting game, this one down in Tasmania, Hawthorn versus the Power.
Yes, interesting game, that one.
Very interesting game.
I think Hawthorn will beat the Power down there.
What do you reckon, Pete?
I really, really don't know, and I'm going to tip Hawthorn only because I want it to happen, not because I think it will.
Well, I'm the same as you, Pete. I was undecided, so I went with what I wanted.
Well, Hawthorn coming off a 3-game losing streak, but Tassie is their home ground, so I'm tipping Hawthorn there. Gold Coast and the Cats. Gold Coast haven't been terrible, but not great. At Metricon, Cats are only just going. Still no Menzel. Bit of a sputtering midfield. Don't know.
They have beaten Geelong up there before.
Yep.
I'll go the Gold Coast.
Can we say that the Cats are just scratching out wins at the moment?
Yeah.
Well, you could, Pete. You could.
Well, with Radigolia gone, they haven't got a second ruckman, and their rucks are very weak.
Macca didn't get it, Pete.
No, it was over his head.
Yeah.
I reckon
365, the Suns.
Cats might scratch out another one, I reckon.
Yeah, okay. The Bombers and Richmond, another interesting game. Considering the Bombers will throw everything but the kitchen sink at Richmond, I reckon. They'll just run their guts out, and it'll be whether Richmond have got the bloody wherewithal to go with them. But it is at the G, so probably Richmond for mine.
No, I'm not tipping against Richmond at the G.
No, not at the G. Richmond for sure.
Yeah. And this one's fairly easy. The last one on Saturday evening, Eagles versus St Kilda at over there in Perth. That'll be ugly, I think.
Yeah, it could get ugly.
Yeah, St Kilda can't score at the moment. They just have not got an avenue to goal.
No, they're comfortable win to West Coast.
Yeah, I think so. Sunday we've got a resurgent North, led by Jared Waite, playing, a plucky Brisbane Lions, but they're playing at Etihad. North fairly short in this one. Yeah.
North to win that.
Yeah. Collingwood and the Dockers at the MCG. Collingwood going all right. I reckon they'll get up there.
Collingwood win that.
Yeah.
Top 8 side, Collingwood.
Well, you picked it, Pete. And who would have thought that it would be the Crows that allowed them to fulfil your early season?
Yeah, kick-started them. We did.
Kick-started with a nice win and now get some percentage.
Well, now they're going to take our spot in the 8. You look at teams that are likely to drop out the 8 from last year, and all of a sudden we're a dead set candidate.
Yep.
Anyway, how are you going for time, Pete? Because we are running over a bit.
I am absolutely clear to go.
Oh,
so keep going.
All right. Well, let's
I'm partying tonight.
Partying like it's 1986. All right.
Cut loose, Pete.
Let's get into some competitions then, shall we, real quick? Tipping, a dead set disgrace by the majority of us.
4 for me. Only got 4.
Yeah, you're not in this, Macca, so just sit down for a moment until Sweets and Smacks, mate. The majority of us got 4. We had J-Mac and Q Cellar Dwellers both got 7.
I got 6.
Yeah, you did get 6. Did you pick all the away teams or something?
I certainly picked Melbourne, that's for sure.
Yeah, I forgot to put my tips in this week, but I don't think it would have mattered much. So Ben and Peter J got 6, Maddie, Megan, and Danos and Donkey got 5, and the rest of us can go to hell. The standings after round 11 or round 10, we have J-Mac clear on 62, Q Cellar Dwellers on 61, Dom and Ben on 60, Matt on 58, Megan, Mark, and Dan on 57, and then the rest. Pretty dismal. Dreamtime was even worse, and one of the really good things about Donkey being here, and there are a few reasons to celebrate Donkey not being on the podcast this evening. But probably the main one is that it was Donkey versus Big Crows Bangers on the weekend. And Big Crows Bangers got cleaned up. 2,214 to 1,793. But in fairness to me, I didn't actually change my team or even look at it this week, and I was 3 short. I had 2 emergencies and 3 short, Macca. I got 1,700 with 19 players.
It's not a bad effort.
No, it's shit. But anyway, so I won't belabor the point on this one. Suffice to say that, Sweet continues to take all comers on. He's on 32 points, undefeated so far. We've got Dylan and Richie, or Dylan on 28, Richie and Corey on 24. Nick and Pete's Pirates on 20, and then the rest. So, a bit of work to do by Big Crows Bangers, unfortunately. And that's competition. So, Macca,
Sweets and Smacks?
Do you want to get into the Sweets and Smacks?
Oh yes, I am a grumpy old man. That's what I am. And I really don't care who knows it.
Well, I certainly was a grumpy old man on Sunday after the game. The sweets are going to be a little bit ironical. It's going to be a sour sweet. It's one, sometimes you get those lollies that are quite sour, and it goes to D-Mac for his comedy routine in the goal square with that brilliant piece of defence where he managed to take it from about 20 metres out right to the line, then fall over and leave it there for the guy to kick off the ground. It was so pathetic, I actually got a chuckle out of it. It was so bad.
It was actually ridiculous.
So it's a sour sweet goes to D-Mac. And the smacks, well, you'd have to give the goal review system a great big cloud over the head. It's quite pathetic, and I just think there's too much being referred back to those panels. I'd much prefer that if there's just like a 50-50 decision, which the goal umpire had a little bit of balls and gave a decision and left it at that. And because it's only meant to really catch the blatant ones. But at the moment, I think that's really up to shit the goal review system.
It's just had the same effect as it had on cricket. The umpires have stopped making decisions, Macca.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
why would you want to look like a dickhead?
And you know what? And I was going to make this point. The thing is that what annoys me is that the whole idea of the DRS in cricket was to eliminate the howler, and that was all that was supposed to be there for. And now it's been used for a completely different purpose. And we actually saw one now. It was the Brisbane Lions game. Now I reckon it was the game against Hawthorn last week, where the Brisbane player kicked what was clearly a goal, well inside the post. And I don't know whether the goal umpire was just unsighted or whatever, but the goal umpire signalled a point, and they reviewed it, and it was like about a half a metre inside the goalpost. It was the howler, and it was great that the goal reviews. That's what it's there for. Yeah. It to my way of thinking, it was never there to work out whether some guy 30 metres out from goal, whether it flicked his fingernail.
Yeah, by a bee's dick.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well,
ridiculous.
And the other thing that comes out of it, Pete, is it's quite obvious that going by the amount of touch bloody ball, that in the past there must be about 10 goals a game that are touched. But I'm quite happy with all that if nobody knows, Yeah. To me, the goal review system is, it should be really reserved as the absolute howler like the one you just described. And
anything else, mate?
Yep. I just want to give a big build across the head to the Crows team for really embarrassing themselves, the club, and the supporters.
And everybody. Brett Burton.
And Brett Burton, he's got to get...
He would have been offended, wouldn't he?
Well, and I would have... He had to be...
I mean, if Bird was offended by the supporters and media last week, surely would have been offended by the team's performance on the week. I didn't see him do a press conference on that.
I'll be bloody offended if he's still got the same job at the end of the year.
Can I just give out a quick sweep to Rory Atkins, who, whilst forgetting to do a chase down tackle with 20 seconds to go when we were a couple of points up and giving away a goal to lose a game, he did remember to have a wonderful chase down tackle when we were some 60 points behind in the last quarter against Melbourne and force a turnover. So well done, Rat.
Yeah, solid.
Certainly not our worst by a long way.
What?
Dear.
You're kidding me. One smack for me is actually to Nikki, and it's a very big shame that she's not in the chat tonight because the smack, she missed the obvious cockwomble, Macca.
Go on.
Bloody, what's his name, on Hamish McLaughlin on Game Day on Channel 7 on Sunday, wore a Superman t-shirt under his suit jacket to celebrate the fact that Marvel Comics had taken over the sponsors or the naming rights of Etihad Stadium. The only problem with that is that Superman isn't a Marvel character, he's a DC Comics character, so he completely fucked it up. So if that's not cockwomble worthy, I don't know what is.
Well, they might have been on a tight budget, and that's the only one they had.
I don't think Hamish is on a tight budget, mate. Anyway, that's it for Macca's Sweets and Smacks. Let's quickly to Game of Thrones. Game of Crows, I should say. And it was uncontested possessions, wasn't it, last week? And uncontested possessions, we had anyone who had Lairdy or Crouch got the 3 points. If you had D-Mac, for God's sakes, you got 2 points. And throws up some interesting numbers. Rory Atkins gives you 1 point. So Lairdy and Crouch for 3, D-Mac for 2, Atkins for 1. I have got the tally, don't worry, it will be updated. No one is missing out on any votes. And that'll be up shortly. And I won't forget also this week what the question is for next week, which is intercepts. No, turnovers. Have we done turnovers? I don't think we've done turnovers. We're going to do turnovers this week. So just something a little bit unpredictable. To give you an idea, last week Ellis Jolman had 8, Douglas had 6, Gibson, Crouch and Duday had 5. So, but it's not really a trackable stat. It varies from week to week. So turnovers this week, and I will post the leaderboard up on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else when I've actually pulled my finger out and done it. Are we done, guys?
We're done.
I reckon we're
done. I've partied, and now I'm going to go to bed.
1938. Thanks very much, Macca, for being with us. Thanks, Peter, for staying up past your bedtime.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone on the chat, for joining us. Always a pleasure. AFLCrowcast.com. We'll see you on Sunday for the wrap show. Night night.
Yep. Good night, all.